Okay, so we're here with part two of the budget special. And as we said last time, we were going to cover the freezing of thresholds and the fiscal drag, and then also succession, gifting, trust planning, etc., especially under pressure and trust planning in general. So basically, many of the tax thresholds are they're not moving. I'd say we've been discussing this in line with inflation and other things, right?
Yeah. I mean, the personal threshold was moving up somewhere between sort of 500, sometimes only like a couple of hundred, but it hasn't moved now for what, 3, 4 years. So if you imagine that if you go back 3, 4 years and you put up three, 400, 500 of a month, sorry, a year, then we should be closer to 15,000 as the basic sort of personal allowance. The upper bands, they did move quite a bit 2019, 2020 from 34,500 to 50,000. So that's probably why they're not moving up. But again, I think the cost of living, we're seeing it everywhere. Price of coffee, food and things like that. It's all gone up like 30, 40%. So you would have thought that in line with that over the last 2, 3 years that we'd see at least, 15,000 on the personal allowance and then the tax-free personal allowance, and then maybe what move it up to 55. Maybe, but it should really be something like 60 then. But I don't think they are going to move that because they're just going to let inflation slowly push everyone into these higher tax brackets.
I think the 40% rise in the cost of living over 10 years is it's questionable because I think that for a lot of people it's an individual. I mean, energy costs, for example, childcare, fuel. It depends on where you live and what your lifestyle and circumstances are. This is the cost of living is such a broad thing to sort of categorize it at 40%. And they don't take into consideration a lot of individual circumstances. So it makes it sound 40% over 10 years. Well, how bad is that sort of style? But then when you actually look at it, and I think it's nearer to 25% in the last five, then it starts to compound with what you actually have to spend. And as you say, if inflation is going up, I wouldn't say wages are frozen, but they're probably not going up at the same rate or and certainly the tax brackets are, as you say, not stagnant, but they're not rising in line.
Yeah, oh, exactly. I mean, you look at the lower end of the spectrum, people are struggling because of these increasing costs and without the increase in salary. I mean, and the business owners are having to take more money out of the business to cover the same expenses they were doing 2, 3 years ago. And then, I mean, the worst tax threshold to cross is the £100,000 mark, because the moment you start going past that, you start losing your personal allowance. So even though it's 45, 40% tax, really it's sort of creeping up towards 60% because every time you earn another couple of thousand, you lose some of your personal allowance. And then that in real terms means that you're paying up to 60% tax. And then once you pop through at 125, then it's back to sort of, you've lost your personal allowance by that point. And there are people also losing child contributions because they're having to take out more money from the company. There's all sorts of things. There's lots of stealth taxes. So it's not just that it's frozen, it's, people are having to pay for more stuff and take more out of the business, which means less investment.
Sorry about that. Let me turn my phone on to silent.
Yeah. So it's like a vicious circle, really. It's like, unless something changes, then it's going to get worse and worse for the average person and small business owner. And then, I mean, the bringing in of the inheritance tax being capped at £1 million suddenly has brought, other issues for people. It's like, well, what do we do if, the husband and wife die and leave a business worth 3, 4 million? Suddenly there's a, 200,000, £400,000 tax bill they got to figure out as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, it's everyone's being squeezed from different angles.
And I think that's something that really needs to be understood because normally these things go in cycles. There's a period of time where it's quite good to be like the self-employed entrepreneur, etc. Paying your own national insurance and you're taking care of your own taxes. And there was a period of time where that was probably the most efficient way of doing things. And then it becomes a company because it's best to run it through a limited company and then maybe or a partnership. And then now it's like every angle there's no release valve. It's
Yeah.
not in previous. I've always felt that the budgets are meant to push people in a certain direction. I don't think that that's obviously a widely held thought, but that's how it feels. It's like we're going to push people in this direction very gently by giving certain allowances, by putting increasing these thresholds. But now it doesn't seem that that's happening anywhere. There is no release valve. It's like from every angle, there
Yeah.
is increases or freezes, etc., etc. And there isn't anywhere um, for that sort of pressure to be okay. Well, if we change this, we could, we're back to where we were. It's you've got to evolve with it now, which I think is far more difficult. If you don't understand the silent taxes that are just creeping up on you from every side. It's only at the end of the year for a lot of people that they realize, or after a couple of years, they realize, wow, my lifestyle has changed dramatically because they're so busy having to keep their head above water in certain circumstances. And that
Yeah.
goes for people across the board because people often think, oh, he's on, 100 grand a year, he's earning 2 grand a week. But I know people like that. And they're spending 95% of that every year on their
Yeah.
lifestyle, on their childcare, on their mortgage. It's the same. So they're probably left with 5% at the end of the year. And the same with somebody who's earning 20,000. It's in line. Whereas that person before earning 100,000 could probably put 50 grand away in savings. It's really changed, and it's
Yeah.
changed very slowly without anybody noticing. But you look back and it does happen without anybody noticing because you do look back and you think, who's saving now? I mean, saving. I'm not suggesting saving's good and pensions are good. It's an individual choice. But I'm saying who is really getting oh, I'm putting that away for savings. The people that are doing that are normally cutting back on something specifically so they can do it. It's a trade-off.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also like you're hearing about salary sacrifice might be something else that's on the chopping block, so that people can't reduce their salary or sacrifice part of their salary to get things like a nicer car for from work or child benefits. There's all these different things that they might just come along and say, right, we're not doing that anymore, and that would in effect increase the cost of living to business owners and families just by reducing a few things here and there. So
I
there
must
might,
admit, I thought that was a trap anyway. That's a
yeah,
personal view. I thought it was a trap. The whole salary sacrifice. It's like, where's this going?
yeah,
When you think of certain taxes that they bring in, you can see, okay, this is a long-term it's a long-term play. It's a long play. There's a goal at the end of this, and this is to just keep this and just rise it here, thresholds there, whatever. The salary
yeah,
sacrifice, where were they going to go with it? What, make bigger thresholds, or were they going to increase what you could sacrifice? Because how many things can you sacrifice your salary for?
yeah,
Where do you go with that? I want a new bespoke suit, you know.
yeah. Well, there was electric bikes and things like that. You could get a cheaper bike.
But this is just incentives again, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like incentivizing people to buy electric cars
yeah,
and the like. But we touched on this previously on the last one briefly about the cab, for example, because we actually know somebody, don't we, who wanted to go down the salary sacrifice route.
yeah,
Then this, you know, cab, even though he actually has a farm, madly the second part, the extra seats in the cab rather than just the front two or three mean that it's not as viable as it should be for him.
yeah. Changing it from a commercial vehicle to just a normal business vehicle, so that it could get the agricultural reliefs and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the mileage allowance and all that. They haven't moved that up. It's 40p. It hasn't increased for a long time. So
Uh,
and the cost of fuel has, it's even though the price of oil went up all the way to 147 dollars a barrel, and then it dropped all the way to zero. I think in the certain parts of the futures market, it actually went negative. So
yeah, it is.
but you didn't see like the price of fuel at the pumps going, halving in price. It all just maybe dropped like 5-10%, and then it's back to the same sort of levels again. So the
To be
oil,
fair, it didn't. It didn't. Also, they didn't. In most places, it didn't rise that much because the people that it's a lockout. The oil industry, as you know, it's a lockout on that. They need to maintain the price of a barrel between a certain amount, and they'll take the hit
yeah,
at their end because there's so much money in that industry. They can take a hit for a couple of weeks to a month quite happily, probably a lot longer, but they never really need to because they can stabilize it because there's a lot of political force behind that. But I do understand what you mean. So do you think there's any thresholds that are going to be increased in this budget?
no, the because of that bump in 2019-20 in the higher tax thresholds from sort of 34, 35 to 50, that might be why they're just leaving it at 50. I mean, it would be nice if they put it up, but nice and what they're actually going to do is two different things. But I mean, they might move the basic allowance up to maybe 13, but I don't really see them, and that would be like a win for the people, But again, that would then say that we're stepping it up for the people, but we're not doing it for the business owners and the higher earners. But
Yeah,
most people are in the higher earning bracket just to afford a family these days.
that's true. That's true. I mean, we'll cover when the next time we speak, we'll cover more what the idea is, the general theory behind this budget, because normally they set out, even if it's in soft focus or a soft opening, soft rollout. We're going to let you know basically what we're trying to achieve from this budget. I've not really understood, and maybe that's me, what they're trying to achieve from this budget. Because normally there is a fiscal idea behind it, and maybe it's not been explained well enough, or maybe it's been explained and I don't understand it. But I don't really understand that. But we'll come to that, as I say, next time we speak. But the thresholds and the fiscal drag, we just see that as pretty much sticking where it is and just slowly eating away. So it's like I say to my kids will moan about things, and I just say the answer is earn more money. And that's basically what the government is saying
Yeah.
to the public, isn't it?
Yeah, because then obviously if everyone starts earning 10% more, then there's 10% more to cover that black hole in the revenue. But I mean, there's no mention of reducing the government's cost and spending. You can also reduce as well as increase, but they never seems to want to reduce what they're expending. There's always an increase, an increase, an increase. So there's no cutting. I mean, even America, they tried to cut with the Doge department, but they didn't really cut much, did they? It was a
I
nice,
don't know. I felt that was a bit of a public relations
yeah,
exercise. I mean, I don't know if they achieved anything. It was those sort of things leave me a bit cold, to be fair. I think it's
yeah.
great theatre. It looks good and it entertains people and it gives you something to talk about in the cafe or in the pub. Oh, have you seen what? But really, I mean, we're talking today in the recent moment. I mean, I don't follow the news a great deal in general, but I was in a cafe this morning and something came up on the news and basically saying that the somebody from the BBC had been found guilty of editing Trump videos and basically the whole Trump speech. No, this is quite high up actually, from what I can guess.
Yeah.
I think it's a director general have been it's those because it ends at the top. So I think that in with that in mind, when you think, oh, Doge is doing this, and it's like, how much of this is really true, and
Yeah.
how much do we really have to read into things? It's like the budget. You know what? I remember saying this like 25 odd years ago. They come out and the budget, and I think I said in the last one, everybody's like, oh, price of bitter up 2p, packet of fags 10p, and all, and that was the headline for most people. That was that's what led the after discussions. I mean, they don't talk about that anymore because drinking and smoking obviously aren't on everybody's menu. But I do think even back then I was thinking, so where does all this money actually go? Because is there a spreadsheet anywhere that we can see? Can we delve into it? Because they are public servants. Can we see what they're trying to achieve? I mean, Is that available to the general public? If it is it so well camouflaged that you probably have to take a month or two to read it? I mean, I know you read the when the budget, everything comes out of the budget. I know you take a
Yeah.
week to a fortnight to go over it and over it and over it, because obviously that's part and parcel of what we do. But I wonder who else really knows where your tax pennies go.
Yeah. And it's yeah, you hear about things like council tax is being paid into the central budget and then it gets dispersed back. I mean, you would have thought that a council that charges council tax receives it and then that's what they actually have as their budget. So there's lots of departments out there that the money all funnels into one place and then somebody decides what to use it for and it's irrelevant from where the revenue is. I mean, there's one thing that a lot of people like is bugbear is like speeding tickets.
What
You
you're
know,
saying is that one place is taking it, passing it to another, then passing it to another, passing it.
yeah,
Oh,
there's
is
no,
anybody doing AML checks on these people? Because that sounds distinctly like it should be looked at.
yeah. I mean, I remember seeing police officers saying that they were underwhelmed by the revenue from speeding cameras. I was like, well, the point of speeding cameras was obviously to make the roads safer, wasn't it?
Yeah, to deter people from speeding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I know.
All these little stealth taxes, your parking fines, speeding tickets, council tax rises, they're all just revenue, and you sort of yeah,
Well, well, okay, but speed things like speed. I mean, that is a stealth tax. Yeah, I know it's a silent little tax, but I mean, as you say, it's meant to be used as a deterrent, but then they get targets.
yeah,
I mean, how crazy is that? So we've got a target. So, we've got to put up more cameras to catch more people because we've got to fulfill a hole in our budget as a local police force or as a local council, most of which are on the breadline anyway. So I'll say again, it would just make you wonder where people's tax pennies are going. But we'll cover this because obviously you and I could
yeah,
talk about this for hours. Succession, gifting, trust planning, just in general under pressure. IHT reliefs thresholds are under review again, you know.
yeah. They haven't
Um,
moved that up in a while, have they? So, you know,
no,
I don't think they will because the the agenda seems to be tax wealth, not income. So I think they're going to keep the inheritance tax threshold, frozen. It wouldn't surprise me if they also put in a lifetime gift allowance. So, they brought in business property relief, a million that comes in April. Agricultural property relief, they're sort of the
yeah,
same now. They're
yeah.
sort of merging agricultural relief and property business property relief, and they're just going to call it business relief. So because there's only a few differences between agricultural and business, so they merged that, and they're going to get that at 1 million, and that's per individual. Then, they've got what's the other one? Business asset disposal relief. That again is capped at 1 million. So it wouldn't be too far of a stretch for them to say, right, well, now we're going to bring in a cap of 1 million lifetime allowance on gifting. And then everything else above that would be like a 20% entry charge, similar to what they do with the trusts. Because when you gift over and above 325,000 into a trust, there's a 20% entry charge. So
Mm.
you know, and that would bring in line the normal gifts just between friends and family. They might say that the £3,000 a year gifting is that stays, but lifetime cap on large sums.
I mean, I will say again, this is another one of those things that I think is absolutely insane. If you want to gift 50,000 to your child
Yeah,
or your
you've got
brother,
it.
why shouldn't you be allowed to? I mean,
Yeah,
I could understand it if they were saying like it's a random stranger that you're paying for services of. That's a gift. But an actual relation, I mean, it's crazy. But going back to the trusts, so you think potentially the entry level might change or not?
well, the 20% charge. I don't think they'll increase that. They could, um, maybe move that up to 25. But it's one of those things that it would be in line with them taxing wealth, not income. So they could do that. They could put in the lifetime allowance. They could change the rules on failed gifts. I mean, there's a lot of people don't understand when you gift something and then you live 7 years, it's out of your estate.
Hmm.
But then if you don't actually survive those 7 years, it's classified as a failed gift, and
Hmm.
then it comes back into your estate, and that gift actually takes up the first 325,000 of your nil rate band. So you think, oh, I've given someone £1 million, and if it fails, it will drop down to 18%, 16%, 12%, or even 8%. Like, no, 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 that's not how it works. You
Right.
know, the first 325 is comes from that gift, and then only over and above that is, that. So you can actually, someone gives 1 million, it's failed, and there's £100,000 difference to what they think they were going to pay versus what they're actually going to have to pay. So they could change that as well. So make it even worse. So we push it from 7 years to maybe 10 years, because they mentioned 10 years on if you leave the country, and then you basically you're trying to leave, and then you want to be outside for tax purposes. They've now gone from it's now 10 years. So why not extend that 7 year period to 10 years as well? Because
Mm.
again, that would be taxing wealth, not income. So there's lots of little adjustments they could do that would dramatically change, inheritance tax, gifting into trusts, lifetime allowances and gifts. So yeah,
What about the 10 and 6? Do you think they'll change any of that? Lower the time, increase the percentage?
that would also make sense. Yeah, that 6% charge every 10 years, that could be, increased to 8.
Or they
You
could
know,
drop the amount of years that it was from 10 to 8 to 5.
yeah, yeah. Again, there's another example there of 10 years in trusts and gifting and inheritance tax. So why
Mm.
not bring the 7 years into line with the 10 years?
Well, it's easier to bring the 10 into line with the 7, isn't it? If you're on the other side of the
Yeah,
divide, because it
yeah,
makes
but
better business for
yeah,
the revenue office.
yeah. So there's a lot of these numbers, like £1 million cap on business asset disposal relief, business property relief. So it would make sense to then put a cap on lifetime gifting. And as you say, the 10 years on trust, the 6% charge, 10 years if you leave the country, you're still in inheritance tax. Maybe extend the gifting to 10 years to make it harder, so that gift is outside your estate.
Hmm.
Or, as you say, bring them down to 7 years. Well, they wouldn't bring moving overseas down to 7 years, but I suppose they could move the 6% charge to 7 years in line. But I don't know, I
But
think maybe,
I mean, we said that we're not going to do any stuff, but this is really and truly where now people need to be astute, they need to be knowledgeable, and they need to be planning ahead, don't they? Forget
yeah,
what, like I say, I don't want this to be sales in any way, shape, or form, but it is something that it's never been more obvious that's because if you're planning now, you're planning to,
yeah,
to foresee what's going to happen in the future. And you're preparing for it. Where a lot of these taxes are literally done because they're catching you out now and again and again. And I mean, okay, I understand that if you put stuff into trust and they do change the percentage and the amount of years, etc., then you're like, fucking hell. There's nothing you can do. There is nothing you can do.
yeah.
Well, I suppose there is, but that's another
Yeah,
conversation.
well, look, another point is that they are in consultation about gifting into trust. So, like a farm or a business into trust, the first 1 million that you've gifted into trust gets business or agricultural property relief. So they've already sort of intimated that there is going to be a lifetime cap of that 1 million. So, and these are things like, for instance, if you were after the autumn budget last year, you then quickly gifted stuff into trusts. They were like, oh, hang on a minute, we don't want people to use the RISAF principle and gift to multiple different trusts, and each trust gets 1 million business property relief or agricultural property relief.
Mm.
So they said, well, actually, each individual is only allowed to gift into trust, and then that trust gets that 1 million business property or agricultural property relief. So
Yeah.
they're already sort of started to talk about that. So it wouldn't surprise me that 1 million lifetime cap on gifting.
Okay. No, I can say I think,
Well,
as you say, this whole taxing wealth, and I don't think many people see it, it's actually seeing what they're doing. Because very few people are actually framing it like that I've seen, actually taxing wealth rather than income, etc. Well, I think that they're doing a little bit of both, but probably more on the wealth side. And the wealth always seems to be the more silent tax attack, if you will.
Yeah. There's also mention of the pension. So they've stopped the pension being outside the estate because obviously people were topping up their pensions like crazy, and then with the aim of passing that on free of inheritance tax to the next generation. They've stopped that now.
Yeah, yeah.
So now the pension isn't a way of passing on large amounts of money outside the estate because it's now going to be part of the estate calculation for inheritance tax.
Yeah. Do you
So
not
that,
think that was a gun to the head moment though for most people? Because I remember speaking to a lot of people and they're like,
yeah,
I don't want to do this. I don't, it's literally I'm doing it because I feel like I've got to. It's the only thing I've got to do. So
yeah,
there was a gun to head moment because most people, it's like, okay, if you're in your 30s and you're putting or 40s and you're putting in huge amounts of money into your pension,
yeah,
it's slightly soul destroying, you
yeah,
know? Because as we know, I mean, if you work in financial circles, there's so much you can do with that, which will be probably better than a pension.
yeah,
So I always felt that was a bit of a gun to the head moment, and people
yeah,
still say that now, but individuals trying to top up or get away from corporation tax, etc., have said to us, haven't they? I can really pump into my pension because I get this. It's sort of like it's almost like once again, I say we're being guided. Can we top up the pension funds because there's a bit of
yeah.
a hole sitting there?
Yeah, well, that was because the bond market, so the UK, bond market, the gilts and all that was struggling, and
Mm.
I mean the whole Liz Truss thing, where the bond market threw a wobbly, then and also now they're looking at changing ISA contributions, so it's got to be more UK based investment, in FTSE 100 and bonds, so it'd be UK bonds. So they're trying to get the average individual to put their money into the UK stock market and bond market because obviously other international investors are pulling out. So again, that could be another thing that the pension funds. So it's not just ISAs they talk about, that more the loading of what pension funds have to then buy would be more UK centric bonds and gilts and businesses.
But they're not encouraging people to put money in, are they? It's like
Yeah,
once again, it's almost like extortion. It's
yeah,
like we're gonna really hurt you unless you do this. And
yeah,
it's like I said, safety valve. It's like, oh, because this is going to really hurt. It's really going to hit you. Mind you, you could go and do this. You could prop up this big gaping hole
yeah,
in the government treasuries. That'd be work, wouldn't it? If you do that, we'll let you get away with a little bit. That's how it feels. Once again, we're paying for mistakes that have been made.
yeah.
And it doesn't seem, once again, we're talking about planning, but budgets more and more have seemed to be reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah, and they're funneling people, you know, and they keep hearing this mantra about inequality, so they're going to keep taxing wealth, rather than income. So anyone who's saved is going to get penalised, and the ones who are going to get rewarded are the ones who haven't saved, which is, moral hazard, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, they say that it's a wealth tax, but at the end of the day, it's the people who haven't saved it's because they couldn't afford to. So they're the lower earners. So
Yeah,
although it looks like they're shafting the higher earners, in reality, as it filters down, you
yeah,
know, it's going to be the lower. It's always this is the thing. They throw this bone out that it's the lower earners have been left alone. They never left alone
yeah,
because unfortunately shit trickles downhill. You attack the top regardless of what you want to think. When you attack the top, you know
yeah,
what I mean, and they sneeze, it blows down and everybody gets like covered in phlegm. That's the way it works.
yeah. I mean, you look at just losing like the top 10 earners in the UK. That you then look at the numbers saying that all these people who've left because of the last budget, it's like 10,000 people's taxes.
Hmm.
It's not small amounts of taxes. For every one of these high net worths you lose that is paying, okay, they're not, they can argue that, oh, well, they're only paying like 20% tax on their estate. They should be paying 50. It's like, yeah, but 20% on 100 million is 20 million.
Yeah,
But that's how many people do you know out there pay 20 million a year of tax?
yeah, and then now they've gone. That's
Yeah,
not,
yeah, 20 million. Yeah,
yeah, it's a big negative.
yeah, that's
Okay, so
thousands of people.
I've got to ask you, as we'll wrap this up in a second. Have you heard of any? Because I have a couple of people have brought up sort of. I don't know how to frame it because I don't want to insult anybody, but like the mansion tax, for example.
Yeah.
I've
Well,
heard a
that
few of these things that are almost,
yeah, well, because you've got the higher tax brackets, well, the higher council tax brackets. They, in effect, what they could be doing is then creating another load of steps higher up to council tax for these bigger properties that are worth 5, 10, 20 million. And that would then fall in line with, this is a tax on wealth rather than income, for
so
the,
not not a stupid idea. Not
no,
it's been talked about, and when
yeah,
people they go, man, you go, they wouldn't do that, would they? So a possibility. And what about because we're talking about the drain on the country and people leaving the country. I mean, somebody sent me a um, like I guess it's called a meme. I don't know. Overnight, which was the Chancellor like winning Dubai Real Estate Agent of the Year kind of thing.
yes,
Yeah, you've seen that, right?
that's
So,
quite good.
and with all these people leaving, and I am surprised
Mhm.
by the amount. I'm surprised by the amount of people who are going to Dubai, if I'm honest. But I'm surprised by the amount of people who are upping and leaving, and people that are attached to institutions in
Mm,
the UK that I'm aware of. Institutions in London, big financial institutions that say, okay, well, they're going to work somewhere else remotely. You
yeah,
can travel in, you go out here, but you can travel in like for 2 or 3 days every month, and we're good,
yeah.
maybe 2 days or whatever. So, but then somebody mentioned like an exit tax that you would have to pay literally leaving the country. Uh,
Yeah, there are other countries with that. We got one client that's, just, worried about that with Canada.
yes,
So,
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
so it does exist, and it would bring it in line with other countries in Europe. So that's, they've put that inheritance tax drag for 10 years. So you've got to leave for 10 years to actually really be outside the inheritance tax brackets. So it would make sense to then bring in an exit charge. And of course, one of those things, if they do it, it's got to be on the day that it comes in so that people can't just leave. But it would be quite funny if there was like private jets all lined up and everything ready on the budget day to leave
To
that
be
day.
perfectly honest, that actually wouldn't surprise me the way things are going. We are
Yeah,
living, it's like we're living in satire.
yeah.
No, yeah, this sort of
Well, I
idea
think some
of
people have already left and they're just like not going to come back if they bring in the exit charge.
no, no. Well, this sort of 10-year drag. I mean, could they increase that? I don't. I mean, it's all the exit charge is like increasing the 10-year drag, isn't it? I do think they're missing the point here because I think the majority of people. I mean, and what claim would they have if you went and moved somewhere else, became a resident somewhere else, and gradually moved your assets over a period of time? What claim would they
Yeah.
have on that? After within that 10 years?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is you can use the corporate structure and it's the shares that stay in the UK and then the funds go into the corporate structure and then you move it and invest it offshore. So the money as such is not in the UK anymore. So 10 years later, they can come looking at the shares, but you just leave them there. You should freeze the shares, leave them in the UK, and you're gone. So the tax liability that's left there. So there are ways around these exit charges. So I think it's more for headlines. It's just to
This is
say,
what I think. It's the optics, isn't
yeah,
it? They do this,
yeah,
and it creates because this is when we go back to what I was saying earlier. We never really see what the result of these things are.
yeah,
But they do it for this reason. Okay, did it actually achieve what you set out to accomplish? We never know. So we're going to say we're going to put a 10-year drag. I get that most people are like, put a 10-year drag. Go on, see what
yeah,
happens. Um, Yeah, okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll tie this up now and we're going to revisit the third part later on this week. Good to speak to you this morning.
yeah,
And let's think about how, not all the negative stuff we've been talking about, but how they intend to grow the economy next time. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Gaze up because don't answer that now. Gaze up because I've been trying to do my research on that, and I'm
yeah,
looking at what they're planning, and I'm thinking, okay, how are you going to grow the economy? But we'll
yeah,
save that for part three, yeah?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, have a good one.
Right.
Bye
Thanks.
bye.